this episode, I get to speak with Joseph George, an alternative dispute specialist and former paralegal. There are always alternative ways to get to a settlement agreement without going to trial. However, they are either rarely utilized or often not even known about. Joseph and I speak all things alternative when it comes to disputing legal matters, regardless of what side of the table you sit on. Listen in for more. Need an extra set of hands for a case that requires a little more investigation work? Check out our proud sponsor of Season 3, Affirm Investigative Solutions, where you get the tailored and personal care for your case when you need it most. With over 10 years of experience, Affirm Investigative Solutions makes the process easy. Set up a call, develop a plan, and then execute that plan. Affirm Investigative Solutions, the litigation partner that has your back.
Hi, Joseph. How are you? Welcome to the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast. I'm super excited to introduce you to our audience today, and hopefully they can learn a little thing or two about this, what I call unicorn in the legal industry. You know, we know about it as paralegals. We're usually either scheduling for it, getting all the parties together, getting all the documents together. We're usually just like the investigators when it comes to, of course, mediation and arbitration, or otherwise known as alternative dispute resolutions. But it's like we don't really know the ins and outs of it, like what actually happens in that room as paralegals sometimes, unless we have the privilege to sit in those moments. So I'm really happy and excited to introduce this topic, especially to those that have never really been introduced to it, are probably in practice areas where they don't really use it a lot. It's not very common. So thank you. Welcome. And without further ado, I want you to take a few minutes first to introduce yourself to our audience and kind of tell us the why, right? Because we all have a why. We all have a reason as to how we got to where we're at today. So I just want the audience to understand that. So let's start off with that first.
So good afternoon. Thank you again, Ms. Fusa, for having me. Such a beautiful day today. Well, it's actually rainy here in Jacksonville, Florida. But my name is Joseph George, and I'm a mediator, and arbitrator, and negotiator. And I work for the different court systems here in Florida, as well as own my own private practice. I'm a partner in that practice, where we handle different cases that come in, whether it's locally here in Florida or international clients. So we have that base also. I transcended from a paralegal all the way up to mediator to arbitrator. So it's been a fun segue, as I would like to say.
I love it. And tell us a little bit how that happened, or what kind of, because I feel like, and before I finish the question, I feel like sometimes we get stuck in our ways. We don't really think about what's next, or what else can I do with my paralegal skills, which is kind of what the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast is in a nutshell, to give that incentive and give that empowerment to these amazing paralegals that we have that can do a lot more than just paralegal, skills and tasks and chase deadlines all day. We have these paralegals, especially senior or seasoned paralegals, depending on your jurisdiction or your language, right? We all have that legalese, that kind of either find themselves at a crossroad at one point. Either something triggers them, whether it's like a life, milestone or something like that. So we all have that little push, is what I like to call it, that little gentle push, or that aha moment that tells us, okay, it's time for more, or it's time for the next step. So what was that for you?
For me, it was, I was working out with some different friends of mine, and again, COVID kicked in, and where I got a knee injury, and sitting there, and a friend was telling me about his mediation class that he was supposed to go into and was unable to because COVID had, just kicked in. And while I was down, I was doing a couple of paralegal stuff, a couple of attorney friends that know that I do it, and helping them out with some dockets, filing some stuff with the court systems. As you know how that is, attorneys don't like doing it.
No, that's why they have us.
Yeah, exactly. That's like a kiss of death. You say, hey, can you file this with the courts? And they go like, let's see, no. Exactly. So doing that with a couple of attorney friends, and then getting to see the different things that the mediators was doing. And then when my friend couldn't get in because of the COVID lockdown, and then when the courts finally opened back on up and they started allowing the classes online, that's when I jumped in it, since I was laying in my bed, had nowhere to go anyway. So I took the class and became a mediator, and then from that went off to becoming an arbitrator. Had that first. Wanted to be more than just a paralegal. Wanted to take that extra step to be able to offer that client something completely different, you know. And a couple of my attorney friends actually like that, because they actually had outside people. So now it's like a one-shot deal when it comes to me now. They could say, hey, you could file the paperwork for the court for us. You could do the stipulation. You could do the mediation for us, you know. So it becomes, you want to create value in yourself when you're out there in the work field. And a lot of people, like you said, they get stuck in their ways. And I always go to the dinosaur theory. If you get stuck in your way like the dinosaurs, you're going to die out. Somebody else is always going to eat your food. If you think you're hungry now, there's always somebody more hungry than you that wants to eat your food. So you always have to innovate yourself and continue to keep moving forward and educating yourself. Keep going to all these different classes out there, the paralegal seminars, any legal industry. There's a lot. The Florida Bar offers a lot of classes also. The New York City Bar offers a lot of CLE classes online that you could actually get some education, because theirs is a little bit different than the Florida Bar. They offer things like on the banking system, bankruptcy. They offer a lot of other classes that outside people could take. That's on their CLE webinars that they have. So paralegals could go there and get that extra education out there. And you know, HR, that's another field that paralegals would be good to be in, is in the HR department also, because a lot of any business that has an HR department has inside counsel. So therefore, if you have inside counsel, you have a paralegal that's actually filing the worker with somewhere. Yeah. You know, they always got us paralegals tucked away in a little shoebox.
You know what? I always say, and I literally, it's so funny that you're saying this and that we're having this conversation right now, because I literally finished recording a YouTube video for my Talks with Etta channel that we have, where people submit their questions and we respond to them via video. So what there was in that video, I'll guys, for you listening, I'll put the link of the video on talking about after this, but in that video, that's what I talk about. I talk about the reason why I named my event Limitless Paralegals, because we are limitless. You know, with our skills, it can transcend anywhere. It can transfer. It can create. We're creators, and it can really go into any industry. We don't have to stay in the legal industry. We can go into the medical field. We can go into the business world, and we can transfer our skills. Super transferable. I mean, our number one skill that I don't think really people notice is our customer service, our client experience. You know, we create that for the bulk of the companies that we work for or with, in my case, in our cases. And so understanding that is value, like that is, if there's no customers, there's no business, right? If people are not buying, if people are not paying, there's not going to be a business. So understanding that that's like your biggest sell point, and your highest skill, I mean, that's really important. You know, client communications, client experience, understanding the process and development, and all that good stuff that we naturally do as paralegals, or that we learn throughout our years of experience and years of working and dedication. That's really where it happens. You know, that's really where the magic happens, and where people don't understand that, right? Especially paralegals, we underestimate ourselves. We get stuck. We don't know what to do. We get stuck in the in and outs, and you know, going through the continuous back and forth and the deadlines, and we get so caught up, I call it, in the chaos of it all, that we don't have time to like get up and breathe and say, wait, I can do more. I can do
Yes.
something more than what I'm doing now. Maybe I can do this on top of something, such as yourself and such as me. We still offer paralegal services, but on top of that, we offer other services.
Yes.
So understanding that it is quite limitless. And back to your point about the Florida bar and the New York bar, American bar, the American Bar
Yes.
Association offers a lot of free CLEs,
Mhm.
especially if you're their members. And their membership for non-lawyers is
Mhm.
like $75 a year. It's very super
Yes.
affordable, and you have access to discounts to their main events, right? Like
Yes.
the International Bar Association.
Mhm.
So really use that to your advantage. Like I don't understand how we sign up for all these memberships. It's like the gym membership, right?
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. You
Yeah,
pay
you sign
month
it and don't
over
use it.
month and never go to the gym, and then ask yourself why you still feel unhealthy and you still feel unsatisfied. Well, same thing, right? If you're paying for these memberships, if you're joining these events, if you're going to network events, not following up with the people that you've met, not
Mhm.
picking up those business cards, or that, responding to those emails, or whatever it is, if you're not pulling in the work, you're not going to get that satisfaction back. You're not, you got to put in the work. We have
true.
the tools. We have the tools, but we have to actually put them into good use, right?
And then sometimes it's the schools that you go to, and I've noticed that there's a lot of colleges out there that offer paralegal classes right now, but they only specific to the paralegal, and they don't offer other classes to help that paralegal take themselves to another level. That's why I actually like the academy that I went to. I went to the Alternative Dispute Resolution Academy, and with them, they offer different programs within their academy. So as a paralegal, you have the mediation right now. I saw, I think a couple of weeks ago, they was doing the elder mediation.
Yeah.
That's coming pretty big here in Florida, because the elderly, they have different needs in mediation than other people.
Absolutely.
So that's another thing that paralegals could try to get into, because that market it's huge. Because we're not going to get young. No, nobody has figured out how to turn back the clock of time yet. So
No.
so that's going to be a growing industry that paralegals may want to dip their hands into. It's not it's a certification that you get right now. It's not a requirement under the Supreme Court yet, but I'm sure they have a guideline for it under the DRC. So they have a guideline. So more than likely, if they have a guideline on how to teach the classes to these schools, more than likely they're probably going to adopt that soon and put it under the mediation umbrella of the Supreme Court.
Absolutely.
So
And I'm hearing a lot of other paralegals also go back for like their masters, right? So their
yes,
masters in law. I know
Mhm.
here, I'm actually looking into the program myself. Florida International has a Juris Masters instead of
Yes.
getting your doctorate.
You get your
So
JD.
yes, instead of getting your JD, it's a JM. So it's a Juris
Okay.
Masters.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's for legal professionals that are in mid-career or high career, but obviously don't want the law degree. They just want more knowledge and more education. And they, in this particular program, they have concentrations. So
Mhm.
education, healthcare, business, and you pick your concentration on what you want to choose, on what you want to learn and
Yes.
what you want to concentrate on. So yeah, they're getting the message. They're getting the message that not everybody wants to go to law school. Not everybody wants to be a lawyer, but yet still wants to work in the legal industry and have some value and credibility. On top of that, they want education, right? Because I feel like we still have not found the proper credibility when it comes to us non-lawyers, right? Most of us have paralegal certificates, are probably certified under one of the, top NALA or NAPS or Federated Paralegals or whatever. We're probably, certified under one of those, but none of them hold credibility when it comes to owning your business, right? So like lawyers have their Juris Doctorate and are barred with the Florida bar. We don't have that equivalent quite yet. So I think this Juris Masters that Florida International University is actually offering is a step forward. And I'm noticing that a lot of other, states such as like Arizona, Utah, Colorado are stepping in and providing limited licensing for paralegals where they can actually practice, quote unquote, and provide limited services like an attorney, but obviously you have to go through like education and credits and everything else, right? It's not just given to you. You're not going to be grandfathered in. They're, obviously they got to make money somehow. So you got to get certified and you got to go through all the hoops and jump through all of that. But they're getting the hint. Is what I'm trying to say. And these alternative dispute resolutions are and we talked about this in our pre-interview, is it's nothing new. It's always been available, but all of a sudden the courts are now making it mandatory. So talk about that, because we talked about that in length, but I loved your point of view on that. So go ahead and speak on that.
Yeah, so the courts actually, even though mediation is voluntary, that the parties volunteer to go with, but when you go to court and you file your disputes with the courts, then the courts have that right to actually give you that option to go to mediation, and every single court has a mediation program in place. So the judge could say, you know what, you guys have to go to mediation before we could hear your case. So when they go to mediation or they come to someone like me and I help them, assist them with mediating their cases, once both parties come to agreement and I draft up the stipulation and I send it off to the JA or the court system, or I file it with the court itself, then that actually knocks the trial date out because they already solved their problem. So that helps relieve the court system from having all these caseloads. So it makes it easier on the judge scheduling too, because then the JAs now we could take this other case on because this one was solved in mediation. Yeah. So it's a win-win for all parties. And mediation has been around centuries. You have Indian tribes that's been using mediation, and a lot of people don't know that. You've got all these different tribal communities that's way back when been using mediation, but for some reason still up to date, only till COVID have mediation really come to light. And people have really been like, oh my God, I did not know about mediation. And it's still up to date. I have talked to attorneys who really still don't grasp the full aspect of mediation. And that's why some of them don't even do it. But they're quick to go to litigation because that's the biggest money, litigation. Right.
We all know that trials make money, either cost money or make money. So it's like a throw of the dice. So we know sometimes it has to do with monetary strategy versus actual case strategy. And obviously that's a conversation for another day. Yeah. So there are other elements as to why ADR is not utilized, but it's very popular. I know anyway, in my personal experience, and maybe you can speak more on that, it's very popular in like family law. Now I see that arbitration in particular is becoming super popular in contract law because they have the arbitration clause where they're not, they're not to go to court until they arbitrate. So I've noticed that, those are the two practices that are most common. Personal injury as well, because sometimes there's not much money on there. So the attorneys don't want to go to trial because they're going to lose money if they go to trial. So I've noticed that in personal injury as well, especially any contingency, right? So any contingency fee cases, they'll definitely try.
Law. The lemon law, that's lemon law. It's mandatory. You have to go through dispute resolution first, arbitration or mediation before you could go off anywhere. So most of the lemon laws are settled in arbitration. I would think to say 95%.
Oh, I didn't know that. See, like I learned something new. That's amazing.
Yeah. So the lemon law, that lemon law it's fun. I do a lot of those cases. Same as HOAs. HOA and condo associations. I don't know about other states, but I know here in Florida, before you could take your case to court in Florida, you have to go through some type of dispute resolution process, whether if your HOA had drafted the mediation clause or they drafted the arbitration clause. But you have to go through either one of those first before you could actually bring your case to court.
And I get it has to do with costs, right? Because HOAs are not going to have that much when it comes to, well, I mean, sometimes, but when it comes
sometimes they have money, but I always tell people it affects your neighbor when you go use that part, because that HOA pot of money, that those HOA fees that they pay is actually going into a pot. So your neighbor is paying for that, just kind of like us paying taxes. We pay for something for somebody else. So it's like that when it comes to the HOA and the condo association. And that's why most of the courts want the condo association and the homeowner to actually go through that ADR process, because some of the stuff that they have is like the courts is probably looking at it like, you come in the courtroom with this?
Yeah.
So you want to change the color of your shutters, and the HOA said no. So you're going to tie up the court's time over colors. But it's a document that you signed right here stating there's an architectural barrier or something that you have to be approved by the HOA before you could actually paint your house. But you did it anyway. But now you come to the court and want us to override a contract that you signed.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Arbitration.
contract law. At the end of the day, it's contract law. Most of it is contract law. Some of it is, I guess, what I like to call chip on the shoulder.
Yeah. So, because you always have
Neighbors
that
not
person
getting
who goes,
along, being bittersweet about it. Like there was this one quote unquote dispute, which it's an amazing example, is when you're putting up fences. People are very, very particular, and you have to do the blueprints and see where your property actually stands versus where you can actually put the fence, and
then line of sight. Line of sight is another one.
So, and how about if you have a what do you call it, an easement or something?
Yes.
All this stuff you have to put into consideration. And something that we have here in South Florida, in particular, or any metropolitan, super saturated or inhabited cities in general, such as like Manhattan of the world or the windy cities of Chicago, there's zero lot lines.
Yes.
My funny story, my husband grew up by Jacksonville. I told you this before, but and they don't have that. They have acres of land. Their dogs are running around on the lake, like he's like, what do you mean walk a dog? The dogs run. They run all day. What are you talking about? What are these leashes that we talk about? And so he didn't know about a zero plot line. And until he, moved to South Florida and he started becoming a homeowner, and he's like, I don't even know what this means. Like, what does that mean? And basically the realtor was like, you can't walk around your house. Is really what's happening. And so he's like, what do you mean I can't walk around my house? So yeah, talk about culture shock and talk about learning the hard way about certain things. And, and unfortunately, sometimes it's an honest mistake, right? Just people don't know. They either move from other places where they're not understanding the concept, speak various languages, multiple languages. So maybe English is not their main language. So they didn't truly understand what they were, reading and signing for. So obviously it's up to us to kind of, weed those out, right? Those are very rare.
And educate them a little bit.
And educate them a little bit and let them know, hey, unfortunately, we understand your situation, but you're still wrong. You still sign for it. Whether or not you understood it or not, this is your signature. So
and I like the ones that I like when they say, well, I never read. I go, well, did you read it? No, I didn't read it. I put my name on it. I said, well, it's not their fault you didn't read your contract. I mean, you could. That's up to you. That's your responsibility to read what you're signing. You don't sign something and say, I'm going to sue you later on when something happens. And that's when you go, I'm going to get my attorney, because the attorney is going to ask you first, did you read the contract? Because what I'm reading right now, they're stating in this contract that you can't put up any shutters or you can't paint them a specific color without the approval of the HOA board.
Right. And if English is not their primary language, I know personally in my experience, they have provided a copy of certain languages. I know here, very popular Creole, Portuguese, and Spanish are readily available. Even our court system is providing in those three languages. So really at this point, there's no excuse, right?
No, there's no excuse.
And
most places,
language is not English, make it known. If it's not apparent. And they will provide you obviously you can't sign that copy, but you can read it, right? And understand it before you sign the English copy. But at this point, it doesn't matter how much ignorance or how much knowledge you may or may not have on that specific topic. There's no excuse. And
most places provide an interpreter anyway, because I know when I'm doing mediations and I have a language barrier, I draft an interpreter in there, and I let the parties know there's going to be an interpreter involved. And then I talk to the interpreter and let the interpreter know, hey, there's a confidentiality that you're bound to because you're part of this right now too. So I let all parties know, because even the interpreter has to be bound by that confidentiality when they come into mediation.
Right.
So they're bound by that same confidentiality too.
And translators.
Yes.
So we get a lot of translators, especially in the court systems when we're at hearings or trials or things like that, and the witnesses or
Mm-hmm.
whoever is on the stand doesn't speak primarily English.
Yes.
So we have a lot of translators that do that as well, written and verbal, of course. Court reporters are now becoming more popular as far as, translations and translating transcripts and all that good stuff. So yeah, there's plenty of options out there for multi-language.
Mm-hmm.
I actually went to a whole convention on just multi-language technology and workers. So I spoke at one of them for legal operations in particular. So yeah, definitely no excuse at this point. It's all about just asking, right? You just can
Yep.
ask. But yeah, so one last thing before I let you go. So what do you see the ADR? Like, what do you see the future of this? Do you foresee maybe more of it, less of it, or more innovation? Like, I'm curious, since you like kind of see the trends day to day, how do you foresee the future for this, since there's so much push on non-lawyers at this point?
I see ADR right now. I've seen it as the go-to for disputes right now. I've seen it already. It's already established in every government facility right now. Just about every government facility has an ADR department. If you Google Department of Transportation, they have an ADR department. Even Amazon has an ADR department. eBay has an ADR department. So it's after, again, post-COVID, everybody saw a need for mediators. And it relieves a lot of legal battles and it solves a lot of problems, because most of the disputes that's out there, it's so small when you actually dissect it down to what the really problem was. A simple sorry could have solved the problem, So I see the ADR, the alternative dispute resolution trend, mediation, arbitration. I see it where it's going to be it's already internationally, because I've done it via Zoom, WebEx, what it's called, GoToMeeting. All these platforms that's out there is setting up the platforms and all the encryptions for confidentiality. They're actually working because of mediation is such a confidential process, they're actually integrating extra layers of encryption to make sure that the mediation process is so confidential. And it's going to be, so you're going to see mediators out there. You know how you drive on Florida highway and every time you see a billboard, it's an attorney.
Yes.
Bye-bye, Mr. Attorneys. Mediators, we are coming. Look for our billboards. It's going to be billboards saying, mediators, we're going to assist you in resolving your disputes. Come and see us. And you can have all the mediators can take all those billboards away. It's going to be none for attorneys.
I'm going to make a meme out of that.
And then you can see on the other side of the street, you can see paralegal firms. They're Mr. Attorney. Yeah. Have plenty of contracts need to be filed. Contact our paralegal firm.
For sure. I think I agree with you on that non-lawyers are really going to, and you can see that throughout our education system. You can see the types of certification programs that are coming out, the CLEs that are coming out, right? Yes. So CLEs back in the day, and I say back in the day, I'm talking about, I've been in the business for 20 years. So 2 decades ago, there was nothing, okay? There was nothing, no CLE that was specifically geared to non-lawyers. You would not find not one CLE that was geared to non-lawyers. Everything was towards your bar, whatever bar it was. So I've noticed that because I primarily focus on the education, right? So educating, all that good stuff. That's what my concentration's on. So I've noticed that in our education system with the programs and certifications and CLEs that are coming out that are talking about communication and that are talking about emotional intelligence and trauma and grief. And these are things that non-lawyers deal with mostly with their clients, right? As far as professional, obviously we all have our own traumas and griefs, and mental health should always be a priority along with your physical health. But that's, again, another topic for another day. But understanding that shift, right? Understanding that they're getting it, they're getting the message there. We're seeing progress, we're seeing results, which is what everybody cares about, results, right? Yes. The bottom line. And so the bottom line is on that note, the bottom line
like you said, the non-lawyers, and a lot of people don't know this, but non-lawyers are like loan signing agents. Like I'm a loan signing agent too.
Okay.
So when you become a loan signing agent, you could, and a notary, you can actually you could help people out with immigration forms, like
Yes.
immigration form specialists. I do that. My friend, we do that too. So as an immigration form specialist, you helping those people who have problems with coming to America and needing those visas and their green cards and all those things. You helping them actually fill out those documents and help them to, and that's another thing, because lawyers, you can't, and again, as an immigration form specialist, you cannot give advice either, but you could fill out the forms and send it in. But now the Department of Justice, don't quote me on it, they have a special program that you sign up for, and then you can actually go to court on behalf of that applicant now. But you have to be a 501c3 organization to receive that credential from the Department of Justice, not the
Right.
Department of
And
Justice
this is
office.
new to us, I think, to America. But
Yeah.
around the world, India has what's called the barefoot paralegal, which are
Yes.
paralegals that don't have degrees and go and, or don't have law degrees, I'm sorry, and
Mhm.
go to court and represent their clients. Ontario, Canada, if you guys haven't checked it out, Rebecca Tripp, she talks about how they do limited licensing practicing over there on small claims like traffic tickets, simple divorces, little things, right? We're not
Mhm.
talking about heavy litigated, jury trials, yes, we're going to leave those to the lawyers.
Yes.
There's always a place and a time for everything. We're talking about what I call the day in and day out cases, right? So traffic
Mhm.
tickets, simple divorces with little to no assets, no minors, things like that. Things that it's just literally filling out, like what you said, literally filling out paperwork. And understanding that document a little better than the average
Yes.
person is what's going to set you aside, and what's really going to alleviate the gap, right? Because there's such a legal gap right now where people can't afford $5,000 for a divorce. I mean, literally, they're getting divorced. So it's like, obviously, they're not going to be able to afford that right now. And here, attorneys are doing it for simple divorces. So,
well, I've had some attorneys, for divorce attorneys, who actually contact my firm, and we've done the separation of asset. We don't do the other stuff, so they focus on the other stuff, and we do the separation of assets. So we get with both parties, and we, like me, I say, here's your list. Give me a list of your must-haves and stuff that you're willing to negotiate to give away in exchange for something else. So I could sit down with the other side and both parties and say, okay, this particular side wants this and the other side wants that. What do you want? And then we negotiate from there. And attorneys don't like, well, the ones I know don't like doing that. They like to be in the courtroom. They like to be doing the depositions. They like to be with the investigator. What did you find this week? I'm telling you, like,
strategy, right? So
Yeah.
the lawyer's job is to strategize and create a strategy in which it can best fit the best interests of their client. That's
Yes.
really what their job is about. There are
Mhm.
law clerks that can do the research, litigation paralegals, investigative consultants. There's paralegal consultants such as myself. There's all-in-oneer, just like you, where it's a
Yeah.
one-stop shop. There's plenty of other outsources that they can do in order to get the job done and get it done well at a lower cost. So
Yes.
understanding that there are other options out there is kind of the purpose of this conversation today, right? It's literally alternative dispute resolutions. So understanding that there are other options, affordable options out there for
Yes.
people that cannot afford the big bill, right? That's what I call
Yes.
it, the big bill, right? That scary sticker shocker that, you pay $5,000 of retainer. Once they eat that up, it's like $500 an hour
Yes.
after that. So it's like not, most of our population here in the States is unable to afford those type of services and survive because
And I
the length of time that you'll
Yes.
have to be continuously paying for that amount.
Yes, and I like to throw this out there for your some of your paralegal listeners that's out there who feel like, I wish I could have been a judge one day, but it just costs too much time. Well, the closest thing to a judge is an arbitrator. So if you felt like you wanted to be a judge and you can't do it now for whatever reason, go. There's arbitration school. Go out there and be an arbitrator. An arbitrator is a person who both parties have designated to pose a decision on their dispute. So he is pretty much the judge in arbitration. So he sits down. You have to do the same process as if you go to court. So the arbitrator sits there And sometimes it's either just one arbitrator or it's a panel. Just again, it depends on the dispute. If it's a construction case, it's more than likely going to be 3 arbitrators. It's never going to be a balance because they always need one party to throw it off and never come to a tie or stalemate.
Right.
So the arbitrator, he's going to be there. He or she is going to be there, and they're going to listen to your case. Each party is going to have an opening statement, and you present your case and your facts. And, you know, like me, I always expect to have at least, if I'm doing the arbitration, I like to have a week with the case files to go over all the documents, read it, look at the expert witness statements and gather all that stuff so I can know exactly what's going on. Then when you come in front of me and then you present your case with your opening statement and arguments, then I could see who argued the best in the case. And I look at the facts, I look at, you know, everything in the case as well as your opening statement. Because sometimes what you have on paper and what you see out your mouth is 2 different things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that happens in the courtroom as well. So that, you know, very much similarities that you identified there. So that's awesome. But anyways, Joseph, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I feel like we can talk about this all day, which I wish that would be amazing. But you know, we can't prolong this. So unfortunately we have to go. But thank you for listening, guys. Thank you for being on the show. And
thank you
that's
so
it
much
for now. Have a wonderful time. Until justice is served, I'll be here, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.